Now that we've finished with the various audiences that you write a position paper for, let's talk about the solid position paper benefits. So, the benefits to writing a position paper are threefold. First, that it's organization for ourselves. Second, is that it provides good research for our opening speech or policy statement. And third, it gives us facts for later use. So the position paper should never be seen as just one standalone document. Rather, you should look at the position paper as a focal point with which to get many more benefits than the individual page. So, jumping right in, organization for ourselves. The position paper gives us a reason to focus and organize ourselves before we even start the speech writing process. In theory, some delegates will start the speech writing first, and then after they have their opening speech, they'll write the position paper. Neither one of these must be done before the other. Doing the initial research for the position paper, when we do it, we learn a lot. And this extra information can actually make our speeches richer, which is a reason why some delegates will write the position paper before writing their speech. Also, the lack of pressure that you have when writing in this time is very different than from the fast research you do during the committee session. For this reason, you should take your time to make different categories, pages, get everything organized in a way that works for you, and that way you'll be able to use the facts and information much faster in real time. And I think that many Model UN delegates don't appreciate that the position paper time is actually the most relaxed time to research and prepare, rather than every night after committee session or during the committee room. Moving on, research for the opening speech. As I said, there's no pressure, or definitely less pressure unless you're cramming to write the position paper right before the deadline. Our position papers give us a reason to decide what our personal strategy is going to be. So to write an effective position paper, we need to think a few steps ahead. This means that if you're writing the first paragraph with the intention of having other countries agree with it, you're thinking of potential allies, potential opponents, potential negotiation partners, and what information you'll need to persuade them. This will make the information that you need available, and I would say immediately on hand when you use it to try to persuade someone in an unmoderated caucus. But additionally, as you write the position paper, you're going to say, that's a good point. That's a good example. You'll set them aside, and at the end of the position paper, you should have most of the material you need for your opening speech, which is, in many ways, a more strategic version of the position paper, usually shorter, that you present to the entire room. Finally, facts for later use. Not all the facts that we use in our position papers will make it in the opening speech. Furthermore, not all of the facts you have might even make it into your position paper, but that does not mean that they won't be useful. Model UN is a game about prediction more than it is a game about research. So if you find information that may not be relevant to your country's views, but could be useful to a later discussion, that is something which you will definitely want to take into account. For example, using the Poland example we used before, information about EU policy and how it regulates corporations to be responsible, especially social media corporations, for the material that they put online, that is something which you may not put in your position paper, but you have the information available because you have clauses that could potentially be relevant to it. So the advice that we recommend here is to make a fact sheet, put down the statistics, the dates, the names, the locations, all the information that we normally forget when we read articles, and have it available. You'll sound much more credible when you bring numbers and names than if you don't. Find a format that works for you. Some have a research binder. Play around with it. But once you have the categories, whether it's stakeholders, names of treaties, data, your own private personal fact book, if you will, the committee session, especially if you don't have electronic information, will find that this information is much more useful and available to you. Now that we have finished with the benefits of the position paper, we're going to move on to the things that we need to take into account before we submit the position paper.